Hey Head Start, welcome to our webinar today with Reflection Sciences. My name is Taylor. I'm the Senior Manager of Partnerships with NHSA, and we are here together with the team from Reflection Sciences and one of their partners at Oscillator Learning. Really excited to talk about executive function and give you all a very well-rounded training. There will be some time for Q&A at the end, of course, but feel free to populate your questions in the questions box or the chat box. As a reminder, a version of the slides will be available and they will be shared with you after the presentation. And a recording of this presentation will also be available to you as well. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to the Reflection Sciences team and we will kick things off.
Hi everyone, my name is Haley. I'm a Client Success Manager at Reflection Sciences. I'm not really going to be presenting, just kind of monitoring the chat and questions, so feel free to pop anything in there. I'll interrupt our speakers if it's relevant, or if I know it's coming up, I'll just kind of let that question fizzle. My email will be at the end for anyone who has questions after. So I'm going to hand it over to her now.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to get us started. My name is Marie Lister. I work at the University of Minnesota and have several different hats there. First and foremost, I'm a preschool teacher there. I teach in the early childhood education program at the University of Minnesota, and I teach courses in early childhood education as part of our program. So I work with the real little guys and the real big guys who are learning about how to work with young children. So today I'm going to be sharing a little bit of a background about what executive function is. I'm going to be talking to you about the ways I focus on executive function skills in my classroom and my own practice. And then we're going to be hearing from a partner of Reflection Sciences, and then hopefully we'll have some time at the end for you to ask me questions, or all of us questions about how we bring this idea of executive function into our daily practice in our work with children and families. So thank you for being here. Thanks for taking the time. It is -11 degrees here in Minnesota, so I hope the rest of you are staying warm and cozy. So one of the first questions that I often get when I talk about bringing executive function skills into my practice is why executive function? What is executive function? Why, when there are so many things that are important about early childhood education and early childhood educational experiences, why are we focusing on executive function? So let's talk about what executive function is. I know that most of the people here have a background, so I'm going to briefly refresh your memory about executive function skills. When we talk about executive function or EF skills, we're talking about sort of the fundamental skills that underlie intelligence and support a lot of the ways that we move through the world. It's useful to talk about it in sort of these three facets. Working memory, the ability to retain information and use it to bear on your situation. So remembering somebody's phone number, remembering the allergies of a specific student in your care, right? And making sure you don't give them the wrong sort of snack. Those all take and require working memory skills. Inhibitory control is the ability to set priorities or resist impulsive actions. An example that always comes to my mind from my classroom when I'm thinking about inhibitory skills is that playing in the block area, and when you can see a child making a choice, right, between like, am I going to knock this person's tower over, or am I going to walk past without bumping into it? Am I going to whack this person because they knocked my tower over, or am I going to go get a teacher for help? Right, all of those decisions and that ability to stop to resist that first impulse. Those take inhibitory control skills. And then the third facet of executive function that's useful to think about is cognitive flexibility, right? So when I think of cognitive flexibility in the context of caring for children, the way it sort of clicks with me and makes sense is that ability to problem solve, right? And to focus your attention. So I'll be sharing some of the ways that I invite my children into that problem solving process in big and small ways as a way of boosting and supporting their developing executive function skills. What we also want you to hold on to is that acquiring executive function skills set you up for a lifetime of learning. It's part of healthy human development, and we're going to talk a little bit about the ways that we use executive function skills as adults as well. We're going to shake the dust off a little bit and do an exercise. I've never done this exercise with 400 people over a webinar before. But what I'd like you guys all to do first is center yourself and going from left to right, starting with red and ending with green, as quickly as you can, read the word aloud. So, red, green. Right? If you are familiar with the English language, if you are able to read the words, this is a pretty easy skill to do, right? If you have all of the resources that you need. So red, green, blue, yellow, something that we can do almost automatically when asked to. For this next activity, I would like you, in the same order, don't read the word, instead say the color of the word as quickly as you can. Hopefully, if you practice that at home, you noticed, right, that there was a little glitch there. That first one, you kind of automatically want to say the word red, but then you remember the rule in your brain. Oh, she said to say the color of the word. And so you have to kind of stop yourself, inhibit that first impulse. You use your working memory to hold that rule in mind. Oh, she asked me to say the color of the word. And then you use your cognitive flexibility to shift the rules that you're using for the situation to say the correct answer, right? Which is green in this case instead of red. So just a little way to, I think, sort of feel that executive function skill in yourself and the effort it takes to not do something sort of as rote, but to use your instincts and your executive function skills and bring the rules to bear so that you can be successful. Why are executive function skills important? For a variety of reasons, right? One of the things that we think about when we think about executive function skills are using them in social contexts. So when we focus in on a conversation and have a one-on-one conversation in a busy area, that takes a lot of executive function skills to block out the information and the noise that is not important and to focus on the person that you're having a conversation with. When we want to change our behaviors, break old habits and institute new habits, right? Those require executive function skills. Holding that rule in mind, oh, I really want to have some candy, but I've decided I'm only going to have one piece of candy a day and I've already had my one, right? Holding that sort of regulation in mind and bringing it to bear on your current, your decision-making process requires executive function skills. I added this picture of a cloud here because navigating the weather as teachers is something that requires a lot of executive function skill, right? In Minnesota, we have a wide variety of weather. Like I said, right now it's very cold. And so often I'll have a plan for the day, a schedule for the day, and then our ability to go outside and play on the playground is impacted by that weather, right? And then in that moment, I'll have to have this whole host of decisions that I make that requires a lot of executive function. Oh, I got to use my cognitive flexibility. We were going to go outside right after snack time and play on the playground. There's lightning outside, so I can't take the class outside. What are safe things that I can do with the class instead? Which children will I have to give special reminders to because a disruption in the schedule is so dysregulating for them, right? Who needs my extra attention and care to successfully make this transition? All of those things that we do, I think, all of the time as teachers require executive function skills. And then I have this picture of the little boy crying, and I talk about this with my student teachers a lot as well, but regulating our own emotions so that we can be safe regulatory partners with the children in our care requires, again, an immense amount of executive function. Just the other day, I had a child in my classroom who is navigating some big feelings and some big behaviors because of some things that are going on at home. He came up and he hit me in my face and was like, I hate you, right? He was having a really, really hard day. And so I just said, oh, I can see that you're really angry and I can help you with that, but you're not allowed to hurt my body. I don't like it when you hit me. Let's go. We ended up going over to, he has sort of a safe corner in our classroom where there are some activities that he can choose from. And I said, let's go over to your safe spot and we can choose an activity to do together, because I can see that you're feeling so upset, but it's never okay to hit my body. That took a lot of regulation. It hurt, right? It hurt when he hit me. If one of my student teachers came up to me and slapped me in the face and said, I hate you, I would have a whole set of different responses, right? But in that moment, regulating my emotions so that I could give that child what he needed, it took a lot of my executive function skills. I'd also like to say that this is why I tell my friends I'm so tired when they're like, what do you mean you're tired from teaching preschool? You're just playing with children all day. The amount of emotional regulation that we do on a regular basis to hold our children and families in care is exhausting. And so let's put a name to it. Part of that exhaustion is because our executive function skills are being put to the test on a regular basis. There's research that we're not going to go deeply into today, but there's a lot of research out there that shows that executive function skills are predictors of success, right? And I think that if we step back from sort of this language that we use, the sort of fancy language that we use around executive function skills, anecdotally, it makes sense to us, right? You can think of children in your classroom, I'm sure, who are really socially savvy, right? Who are able to go over to a play situation, state what they would like. Oh, I really want to play princesses. Compromise when they get other information. Oh, you guys are playing puppies right now. Maybe a puppy and a princess could be together and we could live in a castle together, right? That sort of social savvy that it takes to negotiate with your peers, that requires executive function skills. And we see it at a child level. And then I think we also see it at an adult level as well, right? When I go to a staff meeting and I disagree with somebody else, there's a way for me to say that and to express myself so that my ideas are heard, right? And there's a way for me to say that and express myself so that nobody listens to what I'm saying. Again, being able to navigate those situations both in work and our social lives require that idea of working memory. Oh, I've interacted with this person before. I know that this is his preferred style of communication, right? That cognitive flexibility. Oh, I was going to bring this up, but it seems like she's having a really hard day today. So maybe that's something that can wait for a different time so that she can hear me in a different way. Right? All of that requires that savvy and that ability to navigate those different situations. We know that executive function skills are important as adults. We know that executive function skills are important as children. So why do we want to start with our young learners? Because we want children to have that foundation of success. One, we know that children's brains are they're full of plasticity right now, right? They're waiting to be molded. And so we want to lay down these pathways of best practice. So that children can, so that their brains practice these skills, practice this inhibitory control and this flexible thinking and this working memory. And we know that those are foundations for future success. Several years ago, I was working at a homeless shelter in Minneapolis, and we were putting together an executive function-based curriculum for the children there that were going to be starting kindergarten, that will be leaving the shelter that fall and starting kindergarten in Minneapolis and St. Paul that year. And one of the things that we did as a part of that practice was have focus groups with kindergarten teachers from all over Minneapolis and St. Paul. We asked them a variety of things, but one of the questions that I thought was the most interesting was, what do you look for in children that are coming into your classroom, right? And I'm sure this won't be a surprise to many of you educators, but the answers that I got were not like, oh, we want to make sure that every kindergartner knows their ABCs, or every child who comes into my classroom, it's really important that they know how to write their name, right? Sort of things that we think of as academic kindergarten skills barely got any mention. What the teachers were looking for, right, was that ability to focus attention, to follow instructions, multiple step instructions, to come to a teacher for help instead of reacting, right? Instead of having those big reactions where they hit a kid or grab a toy or push somebody. What I heard from teachers was that if they had those skills in place, if they could control their bodies, if they could focus their attention, follow multiple step directions, then the teachers were like, I can teach them anything, right? If they can be present in the classroom in that way. And so I think that it's really useful to think about the immense amount of executive function skills that it takes to navigate a school system. We ask a lot of children when they go to kindergarten. And so we want to, not only is it biologically like a good time to intervene and to get those pathways laid down in the brain, but we also want to set children up for success. We know what kindergarten and traditional school systems ask of our children, and we want to help them put their best foot forward. So when we think about executive function in schools, right, I think about paying attention to teachers' directions, ignoring your best friend whispering in their ear, right? Ignoring the person across the room that you think is mad at you so that you can focus on what the math lesson is and the instructions that your teacher is giving. It takes a lot of executive function skills. Remembering the directions, using that working memory to say, oh, the teacher said that this is how we're doing the spelling lesson today, right? Being able to focus on a task, transition smoothly between tasks, just remembering that daily schedule takes a lot of executive function skill. Managing your emotions, maintaining positive peer relationships, and thinking flexibly about new problems. I like that example of 3 + 3 versus 3 - 3. I think, again, as if you're familiar with the way our mathematics work, then those are easy problems to solve, right? But if you're not able to focus on that symbol, the plus versus the minus symbol, which if you look at it is a very, very small difference, right? If you're not able to focus on that distinction and remember what that means, using those executive function skills, then it's just numbers on a page, right? Numbers and meaningless lines on a page. And so I think it's important for us to think about all of the different ways that we're asking children to use their executive function skills, sometimes without even noticing it. Which brings me to a question, and I think usually when I do this as an in-person workshop, this is where I would pause and ask you to reflect on your own classroom experiences a little bit. A little trickier to do with 500 people, but take a moment right now and just think, where is executive function? Where is EF already happening with your students? Because I think it happens in a lot of intentional and unintentional ways. So the first two pictures that you see are pictures from my classroom. There they are sitting in circle time. One of my student teachers is leading our large group time, our large circle time. Being able to focus your attention, sit that close together without poking the person next to you, right? Follow along with the story that she's reading and then responding to the questions that she was asking about the story. We're asking students to do a lot. You can see them all focusing there. You can also see that I have support in the classroom. My classroom is an inclusive classroom, so I have children with special needs and IEPs. Sometimes the children with IEPs are the ones who need extra support, and sometimes not, right? All of the children in the classroom can always use a little bit of an extra boost. In the middle picture, you see my children lined up for a fire drill, right? We are housed in the University of Minnesota's Institute of Child Development, and so this was an unplanned fire drill. They had been doing some construction on one of the buildings, and so this had not been, usually I give my children, when we're going to practice a fire drill, I give them a warning so that they can kind of organize around it and so that it's not a surprise to them. This was a surprise fire drill, and it took a lot, right? It was sort of a big surprise, and it took a lot for us to help them regulate their emotions so that we could safely leave the building. Taking some deep breaths, following the teacher, listening to my instructions in what we thought was an emergency situation, again, requires a lot of executive function. And then this picture over here on my right with the blue, this is actually a picture that I took when I was doing an observation in a classroom. And this might be a familiar system to many of you. The teacher had stations set up, and there was only space for 2 to 4 children at each station. And so she had a very elaborate method. After the children would leave group time, they could go over and choose a paper clip. The paper clip color corresponded to a station in the classroom, and they could go to that station. The children were only allowed to go to that station if there were available paper clips. I went in at the end of the year, and it was a really interesting observation time for me because the children who had been in the classroom for the whole year got the system, right? They had practiced it enough that it was really smooth sailing for them. They would walk over, choose this thing, and go to their station. There was some disagreement about, if a favorite station was full, and then the teacher would help them manage their emotions around that. But there was one little boy who had just transferred into the classroom, and he clearly had no idea, right, what was going on, and did not understand why he couldn't just go to the sand table and play with the dinosaurs, right? It was like all this rigmarole. I see the dinosaurs right there. I would like to go to them, please. And so I think that's helpful to think about too, to kind of step back and say, okay, when am I really requiring my students to use these skills? When am I requiring them to focus their attention, to pay attention to directions, to remember instructions that I'm giving to them? And when can it feel like too much? And if it does feel like too much for a student or for a group of students, where does the change need to come, right? Is it a matter of you stepping back and simplifying or streamlining a process so that there isn't so much weight on the student's executive function skills? Is it a matter of giving that student more support because this is a reasonable expectation to have, but maybe the student just needs a little bit more of a boost getting there? I think it's helpful to think about those things from both sides, if that makes sense. And so I think what's the next step, right? You're developing your executive function lens. You have a solid understanding of what executive function looks like. You can sort of pull it apart. Oh, here's working memory in my classroom. Here's inhibitory control in my classroom. Here's cognitive flexibility. I think important things to remember as you step more deeply into this and look, sort of intentionally build executive function skills and practice up in your classroom are, one, when is misbehavior a mismatch of executive function, right? Or when am I asking a student to do so much that might be beyond their executive function skill level that it looks like bad behavior, right? Which is, man, we could talk for hours and hours and hours about that, but I just want you to hold that in your brain a little bit. And maybe if you have more questions, we can talk about that more at the end of the session. So when does it look like misbehavior? And how can I build, if I think a student needs an executive function boost, how can I build that into my practice? I want to remind everybody, right, of course, interventions work in the classroom in the context of relationships with trusted caregivers. So that's the foundation of everything that we do, right? Our children need to know that we see them and that we care about them so that they can buy in to the relationship. And then also think about where they make sense in the context of your day. So right here, I have a student, I took a group of students out for a small group experience, and I had them do something called water walking, where I taped down a path in the hallway, just using some painter's tape. And I had each child fill a cup with water. And then we played a game where they moved their bodies so slowly that they didn't spill the water. Right? They trusted me. I have a towel in the back, if you can see it on the couch. So it was a low stakes game. If someone spilled the water, I would say, oh, the water spilled. Let's clean it up. We can try again. But the idea was to get them to really feel what it was like to intentionally move their bodies with a lot of control, right? The children in this group were a rambunctious and boisterous group and just needed some of that practice, like, this is what it feels like to move with intention and control, some practice in those inhibitory control skills. These are a couple of games that are available There's directions through reflection sciences about how to implement these games, but these are some of the executive function specific activities that we've designed. So I'll touch briefly on one of them. Bear Dragon is one of my favorite. It's sort of like a preschool version of Simon Says. So I have a bear puppet and a dragon puppet, and I play this game throughout the year with my preschoolers. We listen to, my classroom really likes dragons, so in my case, we listen to the instructions from the dragon and we don't listen to the instructions from the bear. And we start out just listening to dragon. Oh, dragon says touch your toes. Dragon says stick your tongue out. You know, we get real silly with it. And then later, after they're used to that, I bring in the bear puppet. Oh, now remember, we're going to listen to what dragon says, but we're not going to listen to what bear says, right? Again, just an easy way for them to practice. Okay, I'm focusing my attention. I'm remembering Marie said, don't listen to the dragon, only listen to the bear, right? Using that working memory piece, and then using that inhibitory control to stop their first reaction, because they're used to listening to the dragon, but they're not used to switching that response. So just a little way, right, to play an engaging and developmentally appropriate way for them to practice some of those skills. This is a picture from my classroom, and I've already spoken a little bit about this, but not only including those specific activities that target executive function skills, but also looking for ways that you can embed it in the rest of your practice. So looking for ways that you can use language to support executive function skills. One of the ways that I do that is tied to problem solving. I used to think when I first started teaching 16 years ago, right, that being a good teacher meant taking care of everything, making sure everything was perfect for my students. First of all, you can't do that. And second of all, there's a lot of learning, right, in the mistakes and in sort of the messy place. And I think I've really grown that as a part of my practice. And so we have these really beautiful old wooden blocks. Often one of them will break. And instead of me fixing it up, I'll say to the student, like, oh, that is a problem. How do you think we can solve that problem? Right? And giving it back to them and inviting them into that problem solving practice has been really rewarding for me and the children. It's resulted in a lot of janky, like duct taped together blocks, but those are the ones that the children take a lot of pride in. And then last but not least, before I turn it over to our next speaker, I just wanted to play a little video of my students playing a game called Blink. So Blink is a commercially available card game. And in this little video, you'll see how I'm sort of managing the game for them and encouraging them to use those working memory skills, those inhibitory control skills, and that cognitive flexibility, sort of switching between rules. Anira's turn. Yeah, B's turn.
Yellow. I got yellow.
You did. Ocean's turn. Oh, oh. What color?
Red.
Yellow. Effie's turn.
Yellow.
Good stretch to the yellow. Hector's turn. Oh my goodness, a lot of yellows. Zoe's turn.
Yellow drops.
Another yellow. Okay, you guys, now we're gonna play the shape game, okay? When I give you a card, you can put the card on the same shape. Like, look at this. Remember, Zoe called these drops. So I'm gonna put my card on the matching shape. Yeah, this time, Ocean's saying, no, wait, it's not the same color, but this time we're matching the same shape. Because we're just going to play a different game. It's going to be kind of tricky. Are you guys ready? Yeah. Do you think you can do it? I think you guys can. I think you can. All right, let's see. Oh, Anira's remembering that we're playing this shape game, so she's going to match it to the same shape.
Yeah.
Just a little snapshot. You saw one of my little guys there who, perfectly, thank you, played out the video that we were doing, but really having some trouble, right? And asking me why, having some trouble shifting between those rules. And then you saw me using my language to kind of organize that experience for them and help them sort of shift into this new way of playing the game. So we'll have time for more questions, and more comments at the end. But right now, I would like to turn it over to Sia, our guest and partner from Oscillator. So there we go.
All right. I'm going to go into Slido. Hold on one moment. There you go, Sia.
Hello, my name is Sia Felice. I'm from Oscillator Learning here in Las Vegas, Nevada, Clark County. Our mission of Oscillator Learning is to bring relentless focus on positive child and family outcomes to close the achievement gap and to build a better future for our children, families, and communities served by the Head Start program. Oscillator Learning, Clark County, Las Vegas, Nevada. Let me be honest, when I was first introduced to executive functioning and I was going to have to use it in the classroom, all I can think of was, okay, now I'm going to add something to my lesson plans, implement something else into my daily routine. Where was I going to find the time? Well, then our Vice President of Education, Alex Smith, shared the activities we would be doing: red light, green light, dragon and bear, bingo, and crocodile. It made it a little bit easier, but as I got more educated about executive functioning, such as working memory, retain and manipulate information, inhibitory control, set priorities, resist impulsive actions, cognitive flexibilities to sustain and shift attention to meet demands, it made it easier for me to incorporate these activities into my daily routine and schedule, such as, which we already did in the classroom, play planning. Transitions, when we would transition from outside to the playground, we would sing a song. And then our outside play, we would play red light, green light. And then just using it as transitions for dragon and bear from circle time to center time. And then the benefits and the results that we had from using executive functioning, it didn't happen that quick. It took a while. It took about a couple of weeks. And I noticed one child who would go from center to center and would just stay in each center for 10 minutes and would have to go to another center. Now he was able to stay in another center for a longer period of time. And then he would go to the block area and he would like build a structure or building. With red light, green light, when the rules changed, such as when we would play red light and the children still moved, I had them go back and start again. The children were able to self-regulate and go back and start again. And then we have the crocodile song, which worked with working memory with children remembering the song, and it helped for them to remember what was going to happen during the day. Such as, okay, we're going to come into the classroom, we're going to wash our hands, we're going to get our jobs, and then we're going to have a seat at the table for breakfast. And then also it helps with retelling stories. But these are some of the ways that made it easier for me to implement it in my classroom. I hope this is helpful for you. Thank you. Have a great day. Orangutan. Okay, and one of the benefits for it was for executive function is it helped working memory, retelling stories, daily routine, inhibitory control, helping our children with self-regulation, play planning, and cognitive flexibility, self-regulate when the daily schedule is changed. And then it also helped them with persistence.
Thanks, Sia. So let me introduce myself. I am Carrie Fruin. I'm the Director of Curriculum and Instruction at Reflection Sciences, and I do a lot with putting together programs for folks. And we wanted to share with you how Reflection Sciences, besides doing webinars like this and training lots of folks, we kind of look at it as a three-pronged method. You'll notice that both of these teachers talk about the first thing they had to do was understand what executive function is, which a lot of times is where we find most people first getting off and finding out what is it, how do we use it, and so on. Then we think about measuring it, which we have a direct assessment that we encourage folks to use, which Oscillator is using currently. And we also then seek to improve it, and that kind of goes where what Marie was talking about in terms of adding these things naturally into the classroom without doing anything new. Like you heard Sia said, quite often what happens is you see, oh no, it's something new that's coming along, and we find out that it really can just be tweaks to what we're already doing, and it turns out it becomes a fun regular portion of the day. We do currently have a free EF course if you're interested. If for some of you are less into the executive function, I understand that you have focused for this last year a lot on executive function, and so we also offer core curriculum. What we're finding is a lot of folks like yourselves really like the trauma course and how to manage your classroom using executive function. But again, it all kind of depends on where you are currently in your journey of executive function and how you plan to incorporate it into your course. One of the things that we have found out is that teachers really like to learn in groups, obviously like yourselves, working in these groups, these professional learning the professional learning communities. When you're taking an asynchronous course, it can be kind of hard to get together and figure out what to do. So we've actually pulled together guides to help facilitate the group so that when you're taking the course, which is online, you can then come together every 2 weeks or so and actually discuss what you're learning. And what we added also to this, because we found learners saying, well, I want a place to take notes as I'm going through the course, is a learning companion guide as well. So if you're unfamiliar or don't like doing facilitating communities of professional practice, quite often you'll see facilitator guides and learning guides as well. We also, the second prong besides understanding is the measuring, and this is the direct assessment we use. And this goes into a quick card sort game. And we actually offer this for free to teachers, and you can test up to 35 of your kids and have a couple of examiners. And it really takes less than 3 to 4 minutes to assess children just to get an idea of where they are on these executive function. And this information in and of itself can really be helpful to determine, well, is it, red light, green light today, and my kids are really, they need a lot more inhibitory control, or is it maybe a memory-based game because they're at a little bit higher executive function, but we need them to focus a little bit more. We also offer then an upgrade from that, and this actually is an upgrade to more data on your student, as well as the activities that Marie talked about. And this is a sample of one of the activities. Both of our teachers kind of talk about Bear and Dragon, and this is kind of a cue card on how Bear and Dragon works and the different levels, and the fact that there are variations. It would be quite boring playing the same game every day at the same level for 15 minutes, especially if kids get good. So what we offer here is different challenge levels, how to change things around, do opposite rules to support flexibility. We also really encourage the talking and reflecting and give some hints as to what am I looking for. If my class is doing this, would this be a game that kind of works? If I'm in this game and my kids can't stop the action, how do I help with that? So all of these things are in the activities that we also offer. So that is sort of how we support what you see these two teachers doing, and where we where we kind of play the role. So right now, I think I'll be going to stop sharing the screen and give you an opportunity to see Marie and Sia again, and ask any questions if you'd like to.
So if anyone has questions, you can utilize the chat box or the questions box, which some of you have discovered. But now is the time to ask your questions of the group.
Are there some of you that might have other experiences that you would like to share from your classrooms with executive function, how it's been going this year? Our understanding is that it's been a focus of the NHSA for kind of a year, that there's been a lot of courses offering, and maybe you might want to share with some of your colleagues some of the things that you're currently doing or have learned in your experience.
It looks like Gina has her hand raised. So Gina Griffin, I'm going to unmute your mic. So if you are there, you can ask your question or share your experience. Let's see, it says you have a question. Oh, that was an accident. Okay, no worries, Gina.
There's so many accidents that happen in this virtual world right now. It would be so much more fun to be in person with everyone. And it would be more fun if it was not -11.
I'm just scrolling through the attendee list to see if who has questions. Oh. Okay, Kaiser, I'm going to unmute you. It looks like you have your hand raised. Go ahead, Kaiser.
I didn't raise my hand.
Okay.
No, that's not me.
Okay, looks like you've got some questions in the chat box, Haley, or the questions box. Do you see them?
Taylor, I don't see the questions. Are you okay to read them out loud?
Okay, so from Gabriela Torres, has the program being used with mixed aged classrooms?
Sia, you can go ahead to speak first to that.
Yes, we have a 3- and 4-year-old classroom in my classroom.
And my classroom is 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. I really like, I really like mixed age classrooms, just because I think that there's a lot of organic learning that happens between the older children and the younger children, right? Not just skill level, but emotional level also. And so I think that executive function curriculum fits really nicely into that. I think one of the things that I'm always careful of in my practice is while I'm helping students learn and gain skills, right, I'm wary of that like comparison thing where they're like, oh, but this person can do it better, or this person can do it better. And so I think having a multi-age classroom lets that all sort of wash out on like a really beautiful, like, you know, right, like there's a variety of developmentally appropriate like things. And so I like how executive function fits in there because it's not always correlated with age. Some children have had experiences in their life so that they don't have as strong executive function skills. And so again, I think that just fits in really nicely. Like, oh, this is just something that you're working on. Oh, I know it's really hard for you to focus. Like it's hard for you to remember my instructions. This is something that you're working on, and here's how we can work on it.
And Claudia has mentioned, really appreciate Marie connecting exhaustion to the use of executive function. So thank you for that.
You are welcome.
From Amanda Beeman, I love the tape on the floor activity. Can you give us more example activities that focus on executive function?
I can actually answer that. We do have an activities guide that we have made for preschool as well as K through 3. And we actually have a home-based guide too that you can find on our site. A lot of the activities that we have done have been traditional as we've designed them. We've taken traditional games. You heard that we mentioned red light, green light, the walk the line with the water. We do variations on that with, as Marie said, that's one level that she might have been working on. If you were to change the direction of the line or make it curvy or pointy, you're actually challenging a little bit more. So I think you mentioned, Marie, Blink is one that is the commercial card game that is a fun one for them to do. But we have a whole host of them, yes.
Yeah, I think there are some that are available through that as well. And I think what's been like a big part of my practice is once I practice, and that's sort of how I built my practice, right? Like first I learned about executive function, then I just took sort of these like 5 games that had been designed and I would practice them in, and then then I brought my teacher brain in, right? And I was like, oh, okay, this is what this is trying to get at. I can adapt a lot of the activities that I do. And so one I think that was sort of at a next level for me, like, okay, understand executive function, here are the discrete activities that I've been practicing, how can I bring it into my space more? We sing the song 5 Little Ducks in my classroom a lot, right? I don't know, like 5 little ducks went out one day over the hill and far away. C is nodding. I'm sure many of you know it. Each verse has one less duck coming back from over the hills and far away. And so I would just ask my children, like, okay, we have 4 little ducks. Can you show me 4 in another way? And then we would count 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And I'd say, oh my goodness, that's 4 in another way. Can you show me 4 in another way, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. And so really simple in the context of, I use that song all of the time during transitions, but a little way to throw that like cognitive flexibility into there. You know what I mean? And so I think for me as a teacher, that's where it feels really exciting too. Like we have these leveled practices that I think are important, and then you bring that lens in, and then I think it gets pretty fun thinking like, how can I mix this up a little bit?
Another question from Marianne. What kind of information do you share with parents to bridge home and school?
I guess the clarification, I think that there's a couple of different here. I think Maria, you're not currently doing an assessment of your kids, right? You just talk about them.
Yeah, so I think that there's 2 answers to that. I think I can talk a little bit about just how I communicate with my families, and then there's also some like codified ways of sharing the like assessment results. And so real briefly, I'll just say that I think executive function language is super helpful because I think it helps me talk about children's behaviors in a really non-valued way, right? And it's a difference between going into a conversation with families and saying like, oh, your kid's kind of naughty and he doesn't follow directions, which I would never say to a parent, right? Or going in and saying, oh, you know, I think that your child could use some support with executive function skills. This is what it looks like in the classroom. This is how I plan to support it. And it gives us sort of a more action-oriented way of addressing those skills. And it sort of takes me and like my opinion out of the conversation, if that makes sense. So I think that's been really helpful in my practice.
And Reflection Sciences also offers a free parents course that we have on our website called Supporting Executive Function Development at Home that we like to share to kind of get the parents involved, because we understand that it is not just a classroom and family time, it does need to be connected. So we do have that free course available along with the at-home activities guide if parents are really worried and they want to do maybe a little bit extra practice with their kids at home.
Sia, have you had any, how have you communicated any of the results? I know you guys just kind of started, so how have you done that?
Well, since we started and then we went into a lockdown, but what we've been doing, since we have some of our teachers in-person teaching and some of our teachers who know about executive functioning doing virtual teaching, they have to work with the parents in order to do some of the activities. Like we have one teacher, Miss Sylvia, who supplied her video, and she had to tell the parents, okay, we're going to work on executive functioning, and this is what it's going to help with: inhibitory control, working memory, and everything else. And then she's okay, parents, let's do it together with our kids. And this will help, them from hitting each other or calming them down, self-regulate, and it's been a big thing for the virtual teachers to work with the parents at that time. And then when we were virtual, I would still do it with the kids, and their parents would learn their songs for the working memory. So as far as results, we didn't get them yet because we didn't get to finish it out, but we still continue to do it and explain to the parents why it's so important to help with their child, with their development, not just for this stage, but to go on, as they get older as adults.
A great follow-up question. Is there evidence that executive function helps children who struggle remembering the alphabet, for example?
So I don't know if it's specific to remembering the alphabet, but there is a lot. There's all sorts of research, and again, Marie mentioned some of this. We don't need to go super in depth, but there is research that shows that as the plasticity of the brain is happening, the executive function is getting stronger. And if working memory is getting stronger, then they're finding ways the kids learn how to sort of learn, I guess is how you'd say it in easy speak. But the executive function, there is evidence that over time, academic success actually does increase. We have a K-3 study here in Minnesota where we saw that it predicted higher success in grade 3 when they had a longitudinal study over kindergarten through grade 3. So there's a lot of academic research there, but I think there's a lot of anecdotal information there, evidence there as well. And if you'd like some of those, if you do want research, we do have, if you send us an email or something and ask for some of this, some citations, we can provide those for you too as well.
And another follow-up question to this question, how can teachers promote executive function activities to parents for remote home learning?
I think they'll just play games. Marie, you can answer, but I think if you can tell parents to just jump in and play with their kids like they used to like to play themselves, because I think in this day and age we're seeing, especially with the way things are with a lot of remote learning, the parents are very, very exhausted trying to help teach their kids at home while the teachers are trying to teach online. And I think sometimes the fun gets lost in it. But every time I talk to the teachers, and I've been working with even my older kids, I've added a lot of game, just becoming a player myself, just playing games over and over again. Would you say that too, Marie?
Yeah, and I think also, right, like you guys, teachers know their families, right?
Yeah.
Like what will work for your families. And so I think just being, again, thinking about what you're trying to get at with executive function and looking for ways that families can incorporate that into their day. So like when I was at the homeless shelter, I sat down with families and I was like, tell me about your day. Where would this, if you're believing that executive function skills make sense and this is something you want to practice with your kid, tell me about your day and let's see, right? And one of the games that was sort of the most successful for our families was on the bus. They had to take the bus around the cities a lot for a lot of different appointments. And so we talked about, right, like playing I Spy on the bus with your kid and why that was connected to executive function skills. And so I think looking for that piece, just like Sia was talking about, and the way I felt when I was hearing about executive function skills for the first time, right? Oh, good, somebody else coming in and telling me another way that I need to do better with my children. Thank you for that information. We don't want to give that message to parents, right? We don't want to go into parents and be like, here's how you can be a better parent. That's not our job. And so looking for ways that we can partner with parents and help them feel empowered too. Like, oh, look, you're already doing this. What games do you play with your child? This is why it's already an executive function game. Here's how you can boost it up a little bit. That's been the most successful for me.
And here's a learning question. We are teaching online. How do we take a game like Red Light online?
Well, one of the ways I can say that we did was we, as a teachers, we made a paper with green, red, and yellow. And we're like, okay, kids, if you're inside your house or outside, I'm going to hold up this piece of paper because they already knew. I was like, we prep them like, what does it means stop, green light means go, yellow light means yeah, slow down. So now I'm going to show you a piece of paper and then you're going to do it. And then you can also change it up. Like you don't have to run. You can jump. You know, we're going to jump. When I put red, you're going to stop. You can jump slow, you know, or you can skip. You can change the motion, just making it easier because you really don't want them to run around in the house. But that was one of the ways we made it easier without them seeing it, you know, and they can't hear you. I'll just hold up a piece of colored paper and the child will know, and whatever motion we're doing, if we're running, jumping, skipping, hopping, you know, and then that's the way you can make it creative, make it your own, and have fun.
Yeah, I saw an example of a freeze dance that one teacher was doing online, where they were playing music and the kids were just standing by their screen and they would dance until the music stopped. So even that is an online version of freeze dance, but again, you're kind of getting them up out of their seats and you're still asking them to do something. So there's some real creative things out there, and if you get your heads together, it kind of just, some of those things just that it kind of just happens. It's sort of fun.
And I think we have time for one more question. I think what this is asking is, how does executive function work with assessing children with an IEP to help you as a teacher?
I can speak to that a little bit. So I think one, it's important to, and how you frame, like, this is like a big, like what you think learning is, right? And so I try really hard to individualize my expectations for each child, right? And so that means that every child is going to have their next step of learning, no matter what that next step is. Everybody's step isn't going to be the same, but each child has that next step. And so in the video that you saw, actually, one of the children in that video has special needs. And so what I did was just look for a way that he could practice his skills in the context of a small group that felt appropriate and successful to him. So he was in one of sort of the more beginner executive function groups, because I wanted him to feel successful in that practice, but also take like his next step. And so I think looking for ways that you can be flexible with the curriculum is pretty important. And then just knowing your children really well, right? Like what's going to be successful for this child? How can I bring, this is what I know about executive function, how can I really individualize it for that student? And actually so we partner with Minneapolis Special Ed, and the special ed teacher at our school, she and I have been working to develop some executive function games that she can take around to the other schools that she goes to, right? Just to, because she's seen it in practice and she thinks it's pretty effective. So it's been great.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for the team at Reflection Sciences. Haley, Marie, Carrie, and Sia, really appreciate your time today. A few of you have been asking about resources. Yes, there will be a copy of the slides made available to you all. And we will send that to you guys in a follow-up email along with a recording of today's webinar. So if we could give a virtual round of applause and clap our hands, that's what I would say you should do right now. But thank you again, team, and thank you to our partners. Really excited to have you guys, and just really appreciate the training that you guys gave. So we hope everyone has a great rest of their Tuesday, wherever you are. I know most of you here in Minnesota, so stay warm. And we will be in touch. Have a great afternoon, everybody.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.